Welcome to Sports Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
From Top Notch Sports. Today, we're going to be going over the Minnesota Vikings offseason salary review with this guy right here, Mike Zimmer, as your head coach. And this Minnesota Vikings team that I feel like is still a solid team. They just didn't win a lot of games last year. So let's hop right into this video. And Mike's going to explain the first slide where we discuss what we think they're going to do this offseason, this free agency, and this upcoming draft. Mike, go ahead.
All right, so here's the first side. Now, this shows you who is currently on your roster as constructed right now. So this isn't taking into consideration anyone on your team that is a free agent or draft picks or anything like that. So first, let's look at the defensive side of the football. This is where you guys struggled heavily. The green is what you will save if you release the player, and the red is what you're not going to save any money. You're going to lose $5.3 million if you release a guy like Jeff Gladney. So let's look at the defensive line. Danielle Hunter is really the only solid piece on this defensive line, so that's going to need some upgrading in this offseason. The problem is you're negative $10.1 million in the hole, which is hard to bounce out of with this roster currently constructed. You don't want to release a guy like Riley Reef to save $13 million because that's going to put a hole on the offensive line. So you're going to need to do this strictly through the draft, and they're obviously not going to release a guy like Harrison Smith either because he's been the centerpiece of that defense for a long time. So looking at it, you need to upgrade at the defensive tackle position, which is doable through the draft. And in the safety position, you need somebody on the other side of Harrison Smith that is consistent and maybe a corner. Now, if we look on the offensive side of the ball, the Vikings offense wasn't your problem last year. The offense looked good. You ran the ball well. Kirk Cousins made Justin Jefferson the best rookie receiver we have ever seen. A lot of that is on Justin Jefferson did a phenomenal job. But if he had a terrible quarterback throwing him the ball, he wouldn't have done what he did. So I think the offensive side of the ball is solid for the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe Kyle Rudolph doesn't want to be there anymore, so you'll see in the upcoming slide, maybe they do away with him. Maybe add a couple of offensive linemen, and this team could be solid to go this year. I expect this team to have a bounce-back year. I really do. They need a good draft.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And again, like Mike said, this offense is pretty solid. I mean, you need a few interior offensive linemen. Ezra Cleveland coming in last year's draft. So he's a nice, solid young piece that can possibly grow. But you need some more interior linemen, maybe a center, maybe a right guard, definitely a right guard. You look at this defense, like Mike said, too. Two young rookie corners coming in on Mike Zimmer's defense, come in right away. Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dantzler. I think those are two really good picks for this defense that can grow in the next few years. You get your strong safety in Harrison Smith, who comes down and makes a lot of nice tackles and hits. You need that true free safety in this system. And I think that you guys are going to like who we're drafting for you guys in the upcoming slides. You'll see linebackers, Troy Dye. I was a fan of him coming out of college. I know he struggled this year in the draft. I mean, this year in the regular season. But you had Eric Kendricks as well, who's been solid a piece for you guys for years. And Anthony Barr, who came off of an injury. He got hurt last year. He was injured. So you guys are going to have him coming back this upcoming season too. So again, like Mike said, you got to address the defensive line, probably that safety position and interior offensive lineman. But let's go to the next slide and see who's currently not under contract, who's currently going to be a free agent this upcoming offseason. Mike, go ahead.
All right, so this is the notable losses slide. And before I get into it, I got to give a thanks to our numbers guy, Noah the Paper Towel Roll Thompson. Always coming through, getting us these numbers. We couldn't make these videos without him. Now let's take a look at the first name is Anthony Harris, which is a big position that they're going to need. They're losing a big name here, safety. His expected contract is a 5-year, $70 million, and the Vikings really just can't do that. And he played in an amazing 100% of the snaps. So you usually don't see that. The Vikings are losing two guys that played 100% of the snaps, and another one that played 96.3%. So they are losing pieces on the defense that already struggled. And then we got linebacker Eric Wilson. His expected deal is a 2-year, $22 million deal. He played 96.3% of the snaps. We got Dakota Dozer, guard, 2-year, $15 million is the expected contract. He played 100% of the snaps also. We got Jaleel Johnson, defensive tackle. His expected deal is a 2-year, $10 million deal, and he played 60.9% of the snaps. And I'm gonna Nick, you want to go in on a name?
Ifeadi Odenigbo.
Vikings fans, don't get offended if you know the correct pronunciation. Go ahead, tell us. Edge, expected deal is a 2-year, $7 million deal, and he played 64.8% of the snaps. So they are losing some pieces on defense, which is not good because the defense struggled as it was.
Absolutely. And typically, like I say every video, you want to bring back the guys that play a high percentage of snaps. These guys are familiar with the system. They're familiar faces. They got continuity, some chemistry. You want to keep that going. But unfortunately, again, you guys don't really have a lot of cap space to bring a lot of these guys back. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll show you what we think you guys are going to do. Here's your potential targets. You guys are negative 10.1 million. That's why we got this number in red. Estimated cuts. We're cutting Kyle Rudolph. He's not really happy with what he's doing lately. And Shamar Stefan for $2 million. That's going to put you guys still negative 3 million. Now, here's the issue. Go back to this slide. We looked at the entire roster. You're not going to cut Riley Reef. Maybe you restructure. We're not going to predict a restructure here. Maybe you can do that. Maybe you restructure Adam Thielen. Maybe Harrison Smith. Maybe Anthony Barr. There's a lot of things, but you're not going to cut someone like Danielle Hunter. You're not going to cut Anthony Barr. You should not definitely cut Harrison Smith or Adam Thielen or Riley Reef for that matter. So you're not going to be able to really free up $10 million. And even if you do, let's say you save up $10 million, you're at zero. So you're not going to be able to really make a lot of signings. So that's why we're not estimating any signings, because we just can't make these financial situations work here. You don't want to cut a lot of people and put yourself in a really big hole. Because like me and Mike just said before, this defense, as much as they struggled last year, you got some pieces. You got Danielle Hunter, you got Barr, you got a pretty good linebacker core, in my opinion. And you got a pretty young safe secondary between Jeff Gladney, Cameron Dantzler, and then you got a stud like Harrison Smith. All you need really is that free safety and interior defensive lineman and maybe interior offensive lineman in the draft. So let's go back here again. Sorry. Oops. Here we go. So team needs, okay? We think you guys need a center, a guard, a defensive tackle, and a safety. All these guys are going to be established in the draft. In the first round, we got you guys drafting a true free safety in Javon Holland. This kid is a ball hawking guy. Mike saw that he can even return kicks. Really good ball hawking guy in coverage. He can cover like a corner, in my opinion. We still got to do some more scouting analysis on him. But again, he has the ability to cover receivers very well and play zone, man zone, whatever the heck you want to line him up in. He can do both. Third round pick, this might be a little bit of a stretch, but he may fall. Jay Tufalo. This guy is a really nice defensive tackle option that you guys can draft probably in the third round. You guys might need to trade up a little bit in that third round to get him, but I think this guy would secure the interior defensive line need that you guys have. And in the third round as well, get Landon Dickerson. This guy's a center. You need that offensive line help, interior offensive line help. This would be a nice pick here. And last but not least, we're projecting your fourth round pick to be Aaron Banks, an offensive guard. This is a nice, big, very raw offensive guard, Aaron Banks. Again, you got to address that interior offensive line as much as you guys want to run the football. And drafting two guys in the third and fourth round, who knows? Even if one of them work out and the other one doesn't, it still helps that run game so much more. So again, that would be nice. And again, I think this would be a successful draft and a successful offseason for you guys. In our opinions, you only really have four team needs. And if you guys didn't have this kind of a draft, that establishes all four. So let's go to the next slide where Mike will explain the 2021 expected starters. Go ahead, Mike.
So this is the 2021 expected starters. Now, real quick, Jeff Gladney and Cameron Dantzler, you may say that you need secondary, but it usually takes a couple years for a young corner to get used to the NFL. It's a completely different beast. So I expect Gladney to actually have a bounce back year and look good this season. So let's go on the offense. Dalvin Cook's going to be happy with what goes on here. The light blue are players you drafted, and the yellow is a placeholder. We usually do some oranges for re-signs and stuff, but that's not here because you have no money to do that. So we got center Landon Dickerson and guard Aaron Banks to buff up that offensive line that Dalvin Cook is going to have a great time running behind, because that's what the Vikings are. They're going to be a tough run football team, and you need to shore up your offensive line to have the success you want to have. And then looking at the defense, we got Javon Holland, who's a very versatile player and complements Harrison Smith perfectly. Harrison Smith is the come down and pop you guy, when Javon Holland is the guy that's going to make a big play by intercepting the football and playing good coverage on even receivers and tight ends. We saw him do it in college. He looked like a cornerback out there, and then he can make it happen after the interception. Great wheels, fast guy. And then we got Jay Tufalo, who may not fall, but we think potentially can fall. Maybe you take one of those fourth rounders you got, package it, and slide up in the third round. Take him to solidify that defensive line a little bit that struggled this year. And I think you're good to go. Your linebackers are good. Eric Kendricks has been there, and Anthony Barr has been there forever. You're a great piece of this defense. You know you'll have a good defensive line. You'll have a young cornerback core that is going to do nothing but get better. And plus, when you have good safeties, behind the corners, they just feel more comfortable to begin with. And I think that's what you get when you take Javon Holland. So I think the Vikings can turn it around a little bit. They got the power on offense. They just got to play better defense. And I think if they follow this draft strategy, they do that.
I agree too. And unfortunately, like you said, we can't have a bunch of signings, have a fun free agency. But this draft, I mean, if you guys want to watch film on Javon Holland or Jay Tufalo, watch it. I mean, these guys are really solid pieces that we got you guys potentially taking later in the draft. I mean, maybe like Mike said, you might have to trade up a few picks to get this Jay Tufalo kid. You got Michael Pierce here too. We'll see how he bounces back. He didn't play last season, but you got the Neil Hunter coming off the edge. You got Jordan Brailford, who's coming off the edge, who honestly, he's a raw prospect too that we heard that can be pretty solid for you guys this upcoming season. Didn't play a lot last year, but he looked pretty good when he did. This interior offensive line, Landon Dickerson and Aaron Banks. Again, Dalvin Cook's going to have a field day going up the middle now, I think. You go back to Kevin Stefanski when they were running the ball heavy with him. You got to build an offensive line. Young Ezra Cleveland, young Landon Dickerson, young Aaron Banks. And another team that did something like this is the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years back, where they built a really young offensive line that has been performing now for years. Yeah, the replacement, Irv Smith Jr., this kid's been good ever since he came out. And like Mike said, you got a really young secondary, but I like what you're building. I mean, Mike Zimmer is a defensive-minded guy. He loves – I think Jeff Gladney was a good pick last year, struggled a little bit. Cameron Dantzler was a great pick in the third round. I'm pretty sure you guys got him. He's a solid corner. And then you bring in a young kid in Javon Holland, who's another ball hawk. I like this defense. I think that they're going to shape up, and this team could very well win the division next year. We'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to see what they can do in a very, very good NFC North, in my opinion. You got the Bears coming back maybe with their new quarterback, whoever they might go out and get. You got the Green Bay Packers are always solid. So we'll have to wait and see. Anything else, Mike?
Yeah, one thing. This is an exceptional coverage defensive team. I mean, looking at like the safety position and the linebacker position, all these guys can cover. And that's something you like to see. The defensive line just needs to get pressure. If the defensive line gets pressure, this defense can be a very good defense.
I agree. Guys, that's all from us from Top Dot Sports. Make sure to comment below. Let us know what you guys think. A lot more content coming your way, or scouting analysis, or mock drafts, and so much more. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe. And that's all from us. Mike, we are
Built Better.
See you guys soon. Peace.